Happy to bring on this next guest. He's been on my Sports Intel show a few times here to cover different things for us. He was a former Ravens player. He's also now, we'll have to ask him how he feels about this, because I know he's very proud of his sons. That's plural, but he's now, I hate to introduce him as the father of Jaden Ivey, because he's got a great athletic career himself, but we're going to do a bit of a profile on him here. But friend of the show, Javin Hunter, welcome on.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me on.
Definitely excited about this because you've got a really interesting history. And I remember hearing, I think I actually first heard your name when you were a lot younger, because there's, like I said, there's some connections here. You probably feel like you're known more for who you're the son of or who you're the father of, depending on what generation of person you're talking to here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I get a lot of people that remember my father, playing for the Lions, and a lot of people, have nostalgia for those 80s teams, even though they didn't win many games. They still have nostalgia for those 80s teams, and so he played on that team. And then, obviously, Jaden getting drafted here, and me being from here, a lot of people keep up with him and how he's doing and how I'm doing, so I really appreciate that.
We haven't talked a lot about your youth. I'm curious how it was growing up as James Hunter's son and how that kind of affected you. Obviously, being in football was a lot different when he was in football versus when you were in football and all of those kinds of things. But how did that affect your upbringing, being the son of a well-known football player at that time?
Oh, that's a great question. So, my dad really motivated me. So, just learning about him, guys used to come up to me and, guys, his peers used to come up to me and tell me how good he was, how athletic he was, how fast he was. And so, I always had the mindset, well, I'm going to be better than him, so he always motivated me to want to, achieve and play sports. And, he wouldn't let me play football until ninth grade, but he put me in soccer. So I played a lot of soccer growing up, and then obviously played a lot of basketball. Started playing basketball in second grade. But, my father, he was a great, great father, very active, and, really just motivated me to want to be a professional athlete.
You can't really suppress that competitive spirit that exists at a lot of levels. But I'm curious why so obviously you were a very good basketball player growing up. Why did you start kind of more with basketball, being the son of a football player? And then at what point did you say, okay, I'm going to focus more on football? Because I said I've known your name for a while. It's because you were on those great Detroit Country Day teams back in the day with a lot of big names, including your own. And those were fantastic teams. I was on the west side of the state, a little bit younger than you guys, but we were following those teams even on the west side here because they were the hottest thing going at that time.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, we had some good teams. Obviously, Shayne Graham was ahead of the stake. I think, many people might remember him playing at Duke and playing in the NBA for 13 or so seasons and winning a championship, and then obviously National Player of the Year at Duke. And then David Weber, who was the MAC Player of the Year at Central Michigan, also the brother of Chris Weber. So, we had some great teams, and that was fun. Really enjoyed my time playing basketball. But, to answer your question, my father wouldn't let me play until ninth grade. So I begged him. From the age of probably 10, 11, 12, I begged him to play. He wouldn't let me play, continue with soccer, continue with basketball. And he always said, when I get to high school, that would be enough football for you. And he, and he was probably right. I actually have the same mindset. I like kids to play. I had my sons play, Jaden and Jordan play flag football. I didn't let them have the contact until they got a little older and was able to kind of withstand the hit. But I got recruited a lot heavier in football than basketball. I had some Division I offers. I had Tennessee, I had Syracuse, Minnesota. I had some D1 offers, but I was a first team All-American in football, so it just and me being 6 foot, it just looked like it'd be a little easier for me to try to make a professional career out of football with my dimensions. So that's kind of why I chose football.
Interesting. Well, clearly your dad knew that you were trying to be competitive with him and said, "Hey, I don't want him to play football. I don't want him to be better than me here. I'm going to start him a little later. I'm going to start him behind the eight ball." No, it makes sense. I mean, I think a lot of parents are dealing with this nowadays. Where I mean, you played football. You're part of the NFLPA system now, and all of that stuff. I mean, there is a lot of studying and things and information that we're getting about how the post-career goes for you guys. There's a lot of mileage on your bodies. Obviously, there's a lot of talk of the concussion stuff, but it's not just the hits to the head. It's the mileage that goes on the body. And some of the parents nowadays are going, I'm not sure if I want my kid to sign up for this. It'd be great for them to be a professional football player and everything that comes with that. But what does that post-career look like, you know, as opposed to other sports where you can kind of be done playing basketball and you might have some issues with some of your joints or something, but you usually can have a healthy career after that.
Right. I mean, it's a grind on both sides of the fence, I guess you could say. You know, physically playing the game, you know, we say in football you're going to get hurt, but it's 100% hurt rate, but you want to try not to get injured. And, you know, you're going to get hurt. You're going to have aches and pains just playing the game. But you don't want to, you hope you don't have any serious injuries. And then, you know, when you're fortunate to play the game and then you retire, it's a challenge. It's a grind to try to figure out what you want to do and how to move on with your life and leave the game, you know, that you've been playing for so long, leave that behind and move on. So, you know, I'm part of the NFLPA and the trust, and so we help. Our mission is to help, you know, former players transition away from the NFL, and so I'm very passionate about helping guys move forward. You know, I was able to go back to school and obtain my master's degree, and I worked, you know, corporate jobs, corporate leadership roles upon leaving the NFL, and so, you know, I try to, you know, just be a soundboard for guys and impart any wisdom I can to help them move forward and, you know, get on the other side of the game.
I was going to talk about that a little bit later because that part it kind of going in timeline order, but that's a good thing to cover now. I'm curious about kind of that transition from, that's always an interesting part. That's one of the reasons I like doing this interview series, because you guys, yes, there is mileage on the body and injury issues and all of that, but it's a weird field as far as a career goes, where you're basically forced into retirement by, it depends on the player. And I guess if you're Tom Brady, you're never really forced into retirement. You just keep playing and all of that. But for the most part, it's hard to play past 40. Usually it's at some point in your 30s if you have a decently long career. And then you know, hopefully have a long life ahead of you at that point. And then you kind of have to go, okay, I'm used to being the top 1/10 of 1% of my field. And now I don't really have a field. I can be part of that. I can be a coach. I can be a broadcaster. I can go different places that I can get my foot in the door based on what I've done, but I have to forge my path. So I'm curious how that looked when you were done playing, and then you said, okay, now what? How did you decide what to do next?
Yeah, well, I actually sought out, you know, the help of the NFLPA when I was done. You know, it was definitely a challenge. You know, I tore my Achilles my second year, and I missed that entire 2003 season. I managed to come back in 2004, 2005 with San Francisco, but I was never the same. So I kind of knew abruptly that my career was coming to an end, and I had to, you know, find something else to do. And so fortunately, I knew that before going in. You know, I chose the University of Notre Dame. You know, I felt like a degree from there would help me be able to move forward if football didn't work out. You know, it's a unique university, and I felt like the degree would put me in some rooms that I would need to be in. And so, you know, I started coaching. I was coaching at Crossroads State University. I was a wide receiver coach. And then during my time there, I went back and got my master's degree, my MBA, and then I started working, you know, corporate jobs. My first job was with the Ford Motor Company, and then also with Tesla. So, you know, I was able to kind of use my education background. You know, I used that, you know, fell back on that, and was able to move forward from the game. But it was definitely a challenge, and I know the feelings you still want to play, and I went through that as well. Really wanting, really feeling like you didn't squeeze all the juice out of the game. But, you got to move on and move forward. And so I just invested that time in my boys and my family.
Well, that's, I think, part of the problem that some of the players have. I joked about Brady, but guys that can go very long. We just had this with Frank Ragnow of the Lions, where he was very beat up. He's known for being a very tough guy. He had a lot of chronic injuries, and right. I don't think anybody was really surprised, especially in the football world, but even outside, saying, hey, I'm sure his body feels very rough in the off season, and especially during the season, he's not able to heal. We don't blame him for taking the time off. Then he had about a half season off, and he decided he wanted to come back. I mean, I think there is a draw for you guys because you're used to being in that locker room environment, that team environment, and it's hard to replicate that once you get outside of football.
Oh man, it's so hard. It's so hard. You see a couple guys came back. You see Phillip Rivers coming back at his age. I don't know how old. He's kind of close to my age. I would say maybe 42, 43. But it's definitely hard. It gets quiet. And you kind of, you get used to playing in front of 80,000 plus fans and scoring touchdowns, and that adrenaline rush is like nothing you'll ever experience in life, except maybe the birth of your kids. And so it's very tough to transition. And so you just got to try to find something that you love as much as football, maybe not as much, but close. And so that's the challenge that every football player, really every athlete faces, in that next phase of life. And so it's important, for guys to use whatever resource they can to move forward in a positive way.
Which is probably one of the reasons why you were drawn to that. You used the NFLPA and you saw the value in it. Yeah, Phillip is 44, so he's just you only got 1 year on him. So there's still time.
Right. I wish.
Well, that's what's amazing about, talking about the whole thing about your father playing, and then now both of your sons, one's still in high school, but both your sons playing ball. It's got to be a little surreal because, I mean, I know you're just slightly older than me, and I'm thinking, how does he have a son that's in the NBA already? But they're getting in pretty young too, because Jaden's not even the youngest guy on the Pistons.
Right. Yeah, he's 23, and I had him at 21. I had him my senior year at Notre Dame, and he actually coincidentally had his son at 21. He's married with 3 kids. But I was fortunate enough to have a son that came out pretty athletic, and he was kind of making a decision himself on which sport he was going to play. But his mother, played in WNBA. She's currently the head basketball coach at Notre Dame, and so he, his passion was basketball, and just feel very blessed, obviously, that he's able to play. And he made it to the highest level, and just want him to continue on and be healthy and happy and have a long career.
Well, like you said, he has a very good athletic profile. He was the son of you and Niall, and the son of a coach, son of 2 very good professional athletes. I actually knew both. It's wild to see him playing. It makes me feel a little bit older because I remember when Niall played for the Shock, and I remember you playing for Detroit Country Day, and now to see your son playing, I'm kind of like, oh man, I'm getting a little old, aren't I?
Right. Yeah, it was some good times, definitely watching Niall play, and Jaden was around her a lot here when she was playing with the Shock, and so that's where he kind of developed his love for the game. He played football starting in 6th grade. We let him play in 6th grade, and then, once he got to high school, he said, I just want to play basketball, and that's where his focus was. But I think, him having parents who play professional sports, it really, kind of developed his love for the game and him wanting to play as well.
I wanted to ask you that. You answered my question before I got a chance to ask it. But Jaden, I mean, I look at him and he's a great basketball player. He shouldn't do anything else. But I look at him and I think, man, he would be a very good football player too, with his athletic profile and his speed. I don't see any cornerbacks being able to keep up with him if you got him on the outside.
Yeah, I always tease him. Like I say he looks like a safety, a strong safety, because he's about 200, 205 now, 6'4", 205. So the big kid. I don't know how. I'm 6 foot. Big Nielle made sure she took all her vitamins, and that's how he got his size. But he's got an NBA body, and the Pistons are playing great, and so I'm looking forward to seeing how the season plays out as well.
I know this has been a good season so far. I felt bad because obviously we've talked to you about Jaden and I've been rooting for him. Well, mainly because of you, but also because he plays for the Pistons. But it's just been a rough go with the injury thing. Hopefully he can stay healthy, because as long as he stays healthy and gets in the flow, he's going to be in great shape. But I know he's probably feeling it a little bit after kind of the back-to-back injuries. It was like once he kind of got healed up from the first one and was ready to go into camp, then it was determined that he's got to go back under the knife.
Absolutely. It was frustrating for him, having to go back down and take care of his knee. But I think, the Pistons have been great in allowing him to kind of get his feet up under him and get back to normal. And I think, after All-Star break, he's going to be, ready to go. But it takes some time. I think people don't understand, when he broke his leg and then to come back, for 10 months rehab and then come back to have another knee issue and have a knee scope and to have another surgery and then be out another 3 weeks when you're trying to get momentum. It's tough. And you're trying to get that momentum during the season. But I think he's playing, and he's been starting the last 3 years. He's coming off the bench now, on a really good team, number one team in the East. And so he's getting his feet up under him and he's starting to, I think, feel better and feel more comfortable. But it's taking some time. But we're really fortunate. I know he's really strong in his faith, and so am I. And so we're very thankful and grateful that he's able to come back and play the game.
I've been telling people that on my show, because it's the idea that it's like he's trying to get on a moving train right now. Everybody had camp to work through, and they got to warm up, and now they've gotten all the reps with each other, so they know exactly where everybody's going to be on the floor. They know where people like the ball, and then Jaden's getting on and going, okay, wait a minute, where do I fit into this? He fits into it. He's just everybody's got to figure out where, because he's a very important part of the future here.
Exactly. And those guys, they spend a lot of time with each other, and I think they have, what I've seen, the most camaraderie in the NBA. They love playing together. And, you've got the core guys. You got Cade, JD, Jaden, Asar and Stu. Those guys have been through the worst of times with losing games. And so, I know they take great pride in turning it around, and now having two winning seasons, currently in another one. And so it's a blessing that they've moved forward, and now they're having some success, and they need to enjoy the success but keep moving forward, and that's what they're doing.
I'm hoping they can put it together. I mean, they're really not getting the respect that a number one team should, in my opinion, especially with Jaden not in full form and probably what's coming here for the season. So I'm excited to follow them down the stretch. We'll be checking in with you about that and hopefully talk more of your career and football. But tell people what you're up to now. Tell the social media stuff, and then also about the trust and the NFLPA stuff, because that's interesting stuff for people to follow.
Absolutely. So my Instagram handle is Javin Hunter 84. And Javin Hunter also on LinkedIn. And then also the Players Trust, playerstrust.com is where we have guys go to, the former NFL guys, but guys can go there and just check out kind of how the resources that are available to former NFL players and our partnerships and how we help guys move forward. But I appreciate the support, Ryan, and again, thank you for having me on. It was fun.
Definitely. Thanks for coming on. We'll look forward to having you back on probably both shows, the basketball side and the football side. And and appreciate your time and what you're doing for all the former players and everything. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Yes, sir, Ryan. Have a great night. Thanks, man.
Thanks. You too. Take care, Javin.
All right.